Hey there, welcome back to another review, this time of the 2001 sequel, The Mummy Returns. Now, this is a film that for some reason over the years has become much maligned by a lot of fans, a lot of critics, a lot of people, a lot of internet publications dog this film, shit on it, and I personally do not understand the persecution. I really don't, especially for the film as a whole. If you're persecuting and poking fun at and prodding the shitty CGI of The Rock as a Scorpion King, I get that. The bad CGI, I get that. I really do. But the rest of the film, I do not think is, and I do not feel is personally worth being as persecuted as much as it is, or being as shat upon as much as it is. I think this is honestly an unbelievably, extremely underrated sequel. It's fast-paced, there's never a dull moment, it's thrilling, it's exciting, it's action-packed, it brings back the characters that you love from the first movie. Some of them are actually done better than they were in the first film, and some of them have more to do. And you have a plot that is still interesting and engaging, because you have the addition of the Scorpion King, which is interesting, the Army of Anubis, which is a really cool new thing for the franchise, and a cool new adversary and menace and apocalypse that they have to try to prevent. The way that they bring back Imhotep actually makes sense, and it is quite clever. I don't see it as lazy as some other people say it is. Also, this film clearly is poking fun at itself throughout the entire running time. There are multiple lines of dialogue where the characters themselves are even commenting on how convenient this is, and so on. So I don't really get a lot of the criticisms for the film that I see. It's not boring. It's got the same likable characters as you had in the first movie, you know, Evelyn and Rick and Ardeth Bay and Jonathan. You got Imhotep is back, and Arnold Vosloo is great as always. And The Rock is a nice addition. And the Scorpion King idea I liked, even though the CGI was pretty bad. Overall, I mean, there's a lot of enjoyment to be had with The Mummy Returns. I don't see why this is considered to be on the same level as crappy sequels like Men in Black 2. I really don't get that at all. So the film is directed by Stephen Sommers, who returned to direct the film. There isn't really a lot of interesting behind-the-scenes stuff on this film in terms of the backstory or the production history, because this is one of those sequels that was put on the fast track right as The Mummy came out in theaters and was a big critical and financial success. Now, it wasn't as big of a critical success as it was financially, because if you go on Rotten Tomatoes, it doesn't really have a fresh rating, which doesn't make any sense. But hey, whatever, it's Rotten Tomatoes. They're rotten anyway. I could honestly care less what the fuck they have to say about a movie. But anyway, the same producers came back for this one, James Jackson, Sean Daniel. Stephen Sommers also wrote the screenplay, and of course it returns the same cast. You got Brendan Fraser, who comes back as Rick O'Connell. He's back again with the same vibe, you know, and the same witty one-liners and deadpan. There's actually a little bit more lines in here that I remember in this one than from the first movie. So you have stuff like where he's trying to talk to his wife, and she's trying to close the doors to prevent the mummies, Imhotep's army, from breaking out of them. And he's all like, honey, these guys don't use doors. You know, it's like these guys don't use doors. Don't bother. And then the soldiers start chasing after Rick when he's on the double-decker bus, and he's like, oh, I hate mummies. You know, he's like, oh, I hate mummies. Of course, his line, he delivers a line a lot better than I do. But, yeah, there's a lot of fun lines, fun moments. I thought some of the comic relief characters were actually better in this than they were in the first movie. I actually liked Izzy, played by Shaun Parkes. I liked that character. I liked the back and forth that he had with Brendan Fraser and everyone else in the cast, the main cast, the heroes of the film. Benny just got on my nerves after a while and just became kind of repetitive. Izzy, there was enough to him that felt like, okay, he's comic relief, but it's not, it doesn't feel like it's as in your face as Benny was. So it wasn't as annoying, and I actually liked the character. Rachel Weisz in this as Evie is, in my opinion, a million times better in The Mummy Returns as she is in the first film. In the first film, she's a klutzy character who's a hoity-toity rich girl. In this, she's much more restrained, and she's also a badass and can hold her own. She has a moment with a shotgun where she saves Ardeth Bay on the double-decker bus. She can kick some ass with martial arts and with fighting. She gets in a really great fight, which is in sort of a flashback, and there's a little bit of it later in the present day of the film, where she fights hand-to-hand with Sais against Anaxinamun, played by Patricia Velásquez, and they both actresses were amazing in this, in my opinion. They both held their own with the choreography and the fighting, and they did all their own stunts. So, I mean, that's equally as impressive as as the choreography that they were given. Evie in this is like Tomb Raider. She's awesome. She's a really cool character, and I actually like the added intrigue of her being reincarnated princess. I like that. John Hannah's a lot of fun. He's back again as Jonathan, and he's the same character. He's the same spoiled, rich brat, basically, as he was in the first movie, and I wouldn't want it any other way. Oded Fehr has more to do in this as Ardeth Bay, which is nice to see. He has some awesome scene where he's fighting the army of Anubis near the end and fucking them up with his sword. It's a really cool scene. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, he's in this too, as the Scorpion King, Matthias. Yeah, the CGI is pretty bad, but then again, it was rushed. The film was rushed a bit in terms of its effects, so they didn't really have the extra time to, make it better. But just because the CGI in that scene and in the scene near the end when all the plants get sucked up looks pretty bad, in some of the other green screen moments, that doesn't mean that every single CGI effect in this is equally as shitty. For instance, I thought the CGI stuff with Imhotep was really good for the most part, except for the one where he's got a human face. That looked pretty off. And especially the Army of Anubis. That was really well done, and that honestly was pretty jaw-dropping to see again in HD. I think that effect, to be honest, holds up really well nowadays. And also keep in mind, folks, this is 2001. CGI effects were nowhere near as good as they are now. You can't really compare CGI effects from 2017 to 2001. It's not really fair. They didn't have the same materials. They didn't have the same technology. They didn't have the same CGI. They didn't have the same resources. So it's really unfair to say, oh, the 2001 film has CGI that doesn't look as good as the 2017 film. That's to be expected. This film was trying to do things with CGI that had not been really done before, just like the previous film. So I commend their effort, and for the time period, it probably looked fine. Even The Rock, even the CGI of The Rock. I mean, how is that any worse than any video game from the same time period? It probably looked better than some of the stuff from video games from the same time period. I don't really understand the criticism of that's the worst CGI effect ever. I mean, it's pretty bad, but I'm sorry. I think I've seen some CGI effects in the past few years and currently that, in my opinion, are even worse. And this one just becomes the popular one to rag on, and I get it, but to be perfectly honest, I think there are worse CGI effects out there than The Rock in this. But it is one of the worst. I'll give it that. But also, once again, they didn't really have the time to finish it. This film even had a kid character in it, and I even liked the kid. I liked Freddie Boath as Alex. This is a kid who turned down a role in the Harry Potter film in The Sorcerer's Stone so he could be in this movie because he was a big fan of the first movie. And it shows here. He's got a lot of passion for this film. And I thought he was a likable kid. He could hold his own. He wasn't annoying. He had a nice charisma and personality to him. The kid didn't bother me. And the kid, if you want to see a bad sidekick kid in an adventure movie, watch The Legend of Zorro. That's a bad, annoying sidekick kid. This kid is honestly one of the better examples I can think of when it comes to a kid sidekick or son in this type of movie. And there's a few other actors and actresses, but mainly those are the main ones I wanted to mention. The plot is pretty much straightforward, just like the first movie, and I like that. There's not a lot of twists and turns, except there's some stuff that they do. There's a few twists and turns here and there with the plot, but it's nothing too complex, and I do appreciate that about the film. It features a really excellent score by Alan Silvestri. It really captures the adventurous aspects of the film perfectly, and it's one of his best scores. This is another reason why Alan Silvestri is one of my favorite composers. Jerry Goldsmith is my number one favorite film composer, and I would probably put Alan Silvestri at number two, even above people like John Williams and some of the more popular choices, because Alan Silvestri, for me, has just as many great scores that I really love, just like Jerry Goldsmith has. And he's another composer who's able to do a lot of things with his music that doesn't necessarily sound like he's copying his older scores or just, being kind of lazy with his music, like how Hans Zimmer has really started to do lately, or Danny Elfman. And this is a really great score. It doesn't have the same sort of vibe as the first one, but this isn't the same kind of film as the first movie. This is even more of an action-adventure movie with comedy elements than the first film was. The first film had a few moments where it could be considered a serious horror film. This is played tongue-in-cheek throughout, not trying to be a serious horror movie at any instance, and it actually pays off, in my opinion. The cinematography by Adrian Biddle is also really well done. The editing by Bob Ducasse and Kelly Matsumoto is perfect. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but it's really good. I think this is a really well edited film, considering all the different stuff that happens throughout the film. There's some new additions to the craziness that I thought was really cool. Like, for instance, these pygmy mummies that show up near the end. That was a nice touch, I thought. This film, like I said, it also addresses some of the criticisms I had for the first movie. The fight that Rick has with Imhotep in this is 10 times better than the fight he has with Imhotep in the first movie. Here, it's exactly what I wanted out of the first fight. They get into fisticuffs, they punch each other, they get in back and forth. There's a back and forth to it. It's not just a one-sided affair. I loved Imhotep's deadpan at times. Like the priest guy, he's all like, "Save me, Lord, save me!" And then Imhotep's like, "Why?" I like that. And so it was nice to see Imhotep again. Yeah, he did the whole water trick and, the sand face trick, this time with water. And that is one thing where it did kind of like, okay, they're trying to repeat the same kind of thing there. But it was different enough. It was water. It wasn't an airplane. It was a hot air balloon kind of thing, which is cool and different. You don't see that very often. And so the way it was shot and the way things were put together, it was different enough to me that I didn't feel like it was just the exact same thing. But I could see why people would be kind of like, okay, really, the Imhotep's face on something, we've been there, done that. Could I have done without that scene? Yeah, probably. But it didn't necessarily bother me that much because I thought it was a cool idea. It was a cool concept. I like the concept of the bracelet that the kid has on his wrist and the whole thing where if he doesn't get to the city, if he doesn't get to the oasis or whatever, he's the tomb of the Scorpion King, basically. He will die. and the life will be drained out of him. I like the back and forth between him and like the prison guard guy, one of the right hand guys for the group that's resurrecting Imhotep and wanting to control the world with the army of Anubis, played by Adewale Akinnuoye-Agbaje. I think I fucked that up totally, but yeah, he plays Loch Na. And for a PG-13 film, and I didn't mention this in my review of the first movie, but I meant to. It really does, just like the first film, it really does get the most out of the PG-13 rating. There's a lot of stuff that skirts the outside edges of PG-13. This film also has just absolutely thrilling action sequences. Everything that you could possibly ask for and then some in a sequel is present in The Mummy Returns. You got more action, you got more villains, you got a bigger scale, you got a bigger budget, you got an army of Anubis. You got a different setting near the end in the jungle with the oasis in the middle of the desert with the pygmies and things like that. You got really great energetic direction by Stephen Sommers, and you just got a fun film, a really entertaining, fun popcorn flick that they don't make nowadays very much anymore. And yeah, is the whole thing, some of the ideas unrealistic? Absolutely. You're not going to be able to outrun the sunrise, but, it's a movie. And it's a cool looking shot, so I don't really have an issue with that at all. Especially considering this is a sequel to the first film, which wasn't realistic either. So I don't understand the people who nitpick this film, like, it's not realistic, you can't outrun the sunrise. No shit, it's an action-adventure movie that's got its roots in pulp comics, like Indiana Jones and things like that. Indiana Jones isn't realistic either. So I don't really get it. It's like, just turn off your brain, sit back, grab some popcorn or a bag of chips and crack open a cold one and just enjoy. I mean, that's really what this movie is meant for. It's, not every film has to tease your intellect. It really doesn't, or entice your intellect. Sometimes you can have movies like The Mummy Returns, which are just great, fast-paced, fun, entertaining popcorn films. And yeah, and, they have their place as well in your film library. And I'm definitely glad I have this, because this is honestly, after watching it again, one of my favorite sequels. And I said it in the beginning, I'll say it again, I liked it more than the first. The action sequences I thought were really tremendous. I thought they were great. I love the variety. This has some of the most variety in this type of film I've seen in a long time. You got gunplay, you got sword play, you've got fisticuffs, you got martial arts, you got all kinds of stuff, hand-to-hand combat with weaponry combined with hand-to-hand combat. It's just one of those things where it's one of those films where it's like it's almost got everything all in one tight package that is just a powder keg of awesomeness. It's a really awesome, fun movie. The budget is definitely on the screen, all $98 million of it, except you can make an argument against the Scorpion King CGI and the CGI of the trees and whatever getting sucked up. That's fine with me, but it may be bad, but it wasn't really that big of an issue for me, because the rest of the film was so much fun to watch. It's 130 minutes, but it goes by like a freight train with no breaks. It is just constant, non-stop action, not a dull moment. And, there's a place for films like that, and I love it. I love it when I watch a movie like this. It's an adrenaline rush, and it puts a smile on my face. The characters are all likable. The villains are villainous enough. The threat is definitely big and epic. And, there's just so much to like about the film. The only issues I have with the movie are very minor. I would probably say the whole convenience sort of the plot at times, okay, you know, maybe they could have done a little bit differently, things a little bit differently, or when they kind of retread some of the same paths that they walked with the previous film. The sort of stuff with, I would say, the whole destiny aspect of it, with Rick being, you know, some guy for God, you know, hero for God, and everything was told thousands of years ago, and or you know, not told. I mean, everything was preordained. You know, that's a bit kind of hackened and kind of, you know, that's kind of bullshit. But I appreciate the fact that even the film itself realizes that and pokes fun at it. So, I mean, I can't hate it that much, because the film itself is all like, yeah, well, that's convenient. I mean, you know, so you know, even the film itself is like, yeah, it's pretty convenient. We admit it, it's kind of, you know, it's pretty unnecessary. But you know, hey, we're just having some fun. So, yeah, I mean, if you want a truly shitty sequel, a truly disappointing sequel, to a Mummy film, it's not The Mummy Returns. It's The Mummy: Tomb of the Dragon Emperor. Like, that is a total pile of ass and garbage covered in piss and shit. The Mummy Returns is every bit of a classic in my eyes as the first film, and is, like I said, I think it's a little bit better, just for me personally. And I know a lot of people are just going to be like, what? And you know, it's fine. If I blew your mind, so be it. I really love this movie. Watching it again, I forgot how much I truly loved this film. And it reminded me of how much I used to watch this one when I was a kid. And maybe it was this one I watched the most, because there were certain things I remembered that I guess I confused with the first movie. Some of the lines of dialogue and some of the action sequences. I mean, the double-decker bus chase is right up there with the mummy fight near the end of the movie, and the climax is in my opinion even stronger than the first movie, because you have mummy fights and you have all this kind of awesome stuff, but then you also have the whole thing with the fight between Imhotep and Rick, and the whole demise of the Scorpion King. Now, oh yeah, there's another thing I kind of remember that kind of bugged me. The whole thing with Naxinamun, who's just like has a change of heart randomly, and it's just like, I'm not going to help you, Imhotep. Just runs away. That felt like a bit forced. Like, where did that come from? I thought her spirit was inside of the body of, you know, the reincarnated Naxinamun. So if the spirit of Naxinamun is in the reincarnated body, why is she freaking out and not wanting to do everything she can to save Imhotep? That felt kind of, that was just made me go, huh? But that didn't really affect my overall enjoyment of the film at all, really, to be honest. Even the, like, cannon fodder characters I had fun with. The guys who were working for the group that was resurrecting Imhotep and trying to get control of the army of Anubis. Like, there were some funny sight gags and sort of funny slapstick with these guys that I chuckled at, which is, there wasn't any of that with the Americans in the first film. They were just bland, boring characters. But, yeah, I really don't know what else to say, except there's another thing I wanted to point out about that's really good about this film. The production and art design. I mean, the production and art design was stellar in the first movie, and it's equally as stellar in this, if not even more so, especially in the prologue and the flashback scenes when Evie is remembering her past as an Egyptian princess. They really went all out in terms of the production design, recreating the look of these just ornate, beautiful Egyptian temples. But yeah, I don't know what else to say about The Mummy Returns. I pretty much said everything that I wanted to say about the film, except if I was going to rate it out of 5 stars, and I would give the movie 4.5 out of 5 stars. I think it's that solid and that great of a sequel and that great of a film. I really do. I think it's one of the best action adventure movies, just like the first film. But I think on the action front, it's a step up from the first movie. And that's why I give it a slight nod over the first film. I totally rank this right up there with Temple of Doom, Last Crusade, and Indiana Jones films and so on. I definitely do feel this is an unheralded and overlooked sequel that I really do think people should give another chance to. I mean, you could be watching something worse, like Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, the shitty Scorpion King sequels, or the 2017 Mummy. This is a perfect popcorn entertaining movie. Popcorn entertainment movie. Just like the first film was one of those perfect examples, I think this is another perfect example of that. And I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. And I also highly recommend you check it out again if you haven't seen it in a long time. Especially if you're a fan of it, because it's a really fun film to watch. And also if you weren't really that big of a fan of it, I think it's worth another shot. Anyway, thanks for watching my review of The Mummy Returns. And as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.